Start that. Back there and Speedway Tavern. Speedway Tavern. Speedway Tavern. Speedway Tavern. Welcome to the Speedway Tavern. Enjoy your stay. Welcome to the Speedway Tavern. What's the news today? Have a drink, have your say. All opinions here today. Welcome to the Speedway Tavern. Enjoy your stay. Webby, GA, and Matt are here today. Welcome to the Speedway Tavern. Come and have your say. Good evening and welcome to the Speedway Tavern, still the only truly interactive Speedway programme out there, made by the fans for the fans, the most downloaded and the most listened to. Ty Woffington, Robert Lambert, Dan Bewley, Adam Ellis and Tom Brennan take a bow. So close, so close. Well done, guys. We're nearly there. And I should say well done to Poland as well. I did hear a little thing on one of the internet saying, is there more than one internet, by the way? On one of the internets saying, it's a shame it had to be Poland. I disagree with that. If you're going to be beaten by somebody, then be beaten by the best. That's what I have to say. Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening.
Good evening.
What's it like in sunny Wales?
Cloudy at the moment.
Yeah.
It's a threat of rain, so if I suddenly run off the screen, you'll know why. So.
Run up the screen. Okay, is that a euphemism? So, as some of you eagle-eyed viewers may have noticed, Matt's not actually in the studio tonight.
He's not all here, is he?
He's not all here. He never was.
No, I'm actually in Webby's back garden. He hasn't told me yet.
No, that's definitely not Webby's back garden. The grass has been cut.
There's no beer cans around, is there?
Yeah, so I guess that's where we have to start tonight is the World Team Cup, first of all. What a great match.
Oh, there was a superb meeting. I think a lot of positives came out of that, really, not just from a British perspective, but from a whole meeting as well.
Mm-hmm.
There'd been a lot of talk, obviously, during the week of the somewhat disappointing racing in the earlier rounds, but that final promised to be an absolute cracker on paper, and it certainly showed up some brilliant racing. Early stages, of course, it looked like it was going to be a two-way tussle between us and the Poles, and with Denmark and Australia fighting it out for the bronze medal. But credit to them, they came back into that meeting and had Jack Holder not come off and had to withdraw from the meeting. There's every possibility you could have had a four-way tussle for the win going into the final heat, which would have been something really to savour. But credit to Poland, I think they showed why they're the top nation. Really, they've got the quality, and under intense pressure in front of their own fans, Magic Janoski had a poor night by his standards, surprisingly, considering it's his home track at Roslev. He stepped up to the plate in the final heat, and just that little slump in the middle of the meeting with those three last places cost us a chance of that first gold medal in 34 years.
Possibly a mistake by Robert Lambert as well to just go wide on that corner, which let him sort of go up the inside of him. But I mean, You can't criticise Robert Lambert, who was the best rider for us on the night.
I don't think you can criticise any of them, to be honest.
No.
I mean, Adam Ellis was sort of heavily criticised in the build-up, you know, as to say, well, what's he doing in there? But he got that valuable second place in his fourth ride, I think it was, which essentially saw us over the line to get the silver medal.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So, I mean, the good riders from everywhere along the line. I think Ty Woffington's got to find his skating boots again, hasn't he?
Certainly has. It was difficult meeting for him. After such a brilliant start, he really looked like he was back to his old self in the first two races. Mm-hmm. Brilliant ride in his first heat, but just tail off badly towards the end.
And some good racing all the way through, passing almost every heat, wasn't there, really?
Well, there was. It was, you know, I mean, there was some superb racing all the way through the meeting and a great atmosphere. And I think, as I say, a lot of the positives coming out of that meeting, really, from a speedway perspective as well. There's been so much talk, hasn't there, in recent years as to, you know, Speedway World Cup or Speedway of Nations. I think the two of them complement each other, and they offer a different sort of challenge, don't they? The Speedway Nations is more of an event where you have to work as a team, whereas the World Team Cup, although it's essentially a team event, every rider's on the track as an individual, and they've got to do it themselves. But you know, obviously they've got the next 2 years. We've got the Speedway of Nations, which we've managed to win already, of course, in 2021. And, you know, start to look forward to the next World Cup, which, of course, is scheduled for 2026.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think we've mentioned before that it's a better event for being every 3 years. I mean, I can't think of any other sport where the World Cup is every year. Any team sport.
I think it is. Yeah, it was. I certainly think it sort of gives you a team, a nation, more of a chance to sort of savour it and use the status of world champions if you were having it every 3 or 4 years rather than every 12 months. Mm-hmm. You know, Poland obviously taking advantage of the fact that they've held it for such a long period of time. But you know, obviously they've got the strength in depth. But a British team has gone to Poland and had a Polish team
very worried. Yeah,
no doubt
absolutely.
About that. So that's
like
a huge,
I said they would.
Step forward.
Yes, okay.
like I said they would.
Where? So before we go on to the comments, we ought to mention, because a lot of it's coming up in the comments, Ty Woffington back in British Speedway.
Yeah, big move that. Obviously these discussions would have been going on in Wrocław probably after Jack Holder was withdrawn from the meeting. Obviously we wish Jack well. Really nasty crash.
Was, yeah.
Looked in a lot of pain as he was walking off the track, and you just thought, he's not going to be back on the block again tonight.
I understand he's broken his wrist.
Sheffield have acted quickly to bring in Ty Woffington, so that should obviously give them a boost going into the latter stages of the season, and certainly has the potential for an interesting bank holiday Monday when, of course, they are at Monmouth Green for the league match against Wolves. Obviously, Ty Woffington returning to his former stomping ground.
That will be interesting. So let's go to the comments. I don't know whether you can see them where you are, Matt. So Robert Greenwood, leading with that, says, how good is it to see Ty back in British Speedway? Although the doubters, probably Bellevue fans, are already slating Sheffield for getting him. It says skating Sheffield, but I'm not sure you can use that as a verb. Got a few. Oh, we've gone past the people. You just don't want me to read everybody.
I don't want to say hello to them.
Yeah, so Rish is saying hello, and Andrew's saying hello. Philip Gray saying hello. Craig Smee, I was so gutted on Saturday. A few years ago, we'd be jumping around at the fact we got a silver. I really thought we should have won that meeting and thought we threw it away. Still a superb meeting and advert for Speedway. I don't read it that way. I think it's more Poland got there.
I mean, I looked at the 2016 result when we finished second the last time. We scored 32 points, which was actually one more than we scored this time. Of those 32 points in 2016, Ty Woffington scored 19 of those. Yeah. So that's over half. Yeah. And you had a Craig Cook 5, Danny King 5, Robert Lambert 3, and Adam Ellis failed to score. So it's definitely progress. I think a lot of people would have taken the silver medal before the meeting anyway, but obviously just disappointed in the end to get so close and to miss out.
I don't think anybody would have taken the silver medal. I think everybody felt they was in with a chance, to be honest. Certainly around the team, anyway.
Certainly, certainly all four of the teams would have thought that. Certainly looked a very open racing. I think there was maybe a bit of an overreaction to Australia's performance in the race-off. Everyone talked about what a fantastic performance they give. It was a fairly, in comparison to the final, it was a fairly weak lineup in the race-off that they were up against. Sweden, obviously, not the force they once were, and France and the Czechs. But credit to France as well. Sixth place in the World Cup. That's a hell of a result for them as well.
It is, yes.
It's generally seen as a bit of a minnow nation in Speedway terms, but they had some. We lost their qualifying match obviously on the Wednesday, and they showed a lot of glimpses as well. They got some decent riders coming through.
But
in France.
Let's not big them up too much. They're French. So, well.
That was me being
was that your Australian?
Yeah.
Okay. Simon Corbett says the qualifiers were unnecessary. Crowd very poor, but the final was superb. But you've got to whittle it down to 4 nations. So how do you do that if you don't have?
I think the crowds were always going to be lower in the meetings where Poland weren't racing. Polish fans, I think I've said before, Polish fans are not like British fans. They don't go and watch Speedway. They go to watch their team win. So you were never going to get scores of Polish fans going to watch 4 nations that didn't include the home nation. That's probably one of the downfalls really of the competition, was that the crowds weren't great, and I suppose consequently the atmosphere wasn't great. And to be honest, in some cases the racing wasn't great in those either. But I thought the final more than made up for that.
I don't think the track was prepared quite the same in those race.
Probably wasn't, but then I suppose when you've got 4 meetings at the track within the space of a week, then you've got to sort of be a little bit careful with how you prepare the track, because by the time you would think by the time it got to the 4th meeting, it would have been probably at its worst. But the track was sort of saved. They sort of saved the best to last, didn't they?
It did, yeah. Rich Thomas says we were always going to be 1 rider short. I'm not sure you can say that. Or if you can, then the other teams were 1 rider short as well.
I think certainly Tom Brennan obviously failing to score. I mean, we obviously race him very, very highly in this country, but just that little bit of lack of experience at that level, I think probably cost Tom a little bit in the end. There was a lot of pressure really on Dan Bewley as a reserve, because he was expected to have a lot of rides, and I think the expectation was he was going to provide the scores that maybe Tom Brendan and Adam Ellis weren't going to be able to. But as I say, credit to Adam Ellis, he took quite a bit of criticism during the meeting and in the build-up to it there. But as I say, that second place that he got in his 3rd ride really was enough to sort of get us over the line and make sure that we pipped the Danes for second place. It would have been nice to have won it, no doubt about that. But
have you turned into Nigel Calvin Tatum? I beg your pardon. No doubt about that. Right. I'm sorry. Woffenden, from Jeff Daniels, Woffenden not the rider he was, way past his best, makes Sheffield weaker. I mean, you sort of intimated to that.
Possibly does. I mean, Jack Holder's had a fantastic season. Certainly top 3 of the World Championship at the moment. Ty, in contrast, I think down in 10th in the series. Hasn't won a Grand Prix now since his last World Championship season in 2018. And he's not got a huge amount of recent experience of racing at Sheffield. It's got to have been. He's probably going back to when he rode for Rye House was the last time he would have ridden regularly up there. But not a difficult track to ride on. I think once he gets dialed in, I don't think there'll be any issues.
No, I don't think so. And as far as it's making Sheffield weaker, I think there are 2 ways of looking at that. I mean, he isn't as good a rider as Jack Holder, but he's probably going to be better than most of the riders that they would get in as a guest.
I think so, and I think Sheffield have got to be applauded for that, haven't they? Because it would have been the easy option would have been just to go for guests until Jack's fit again. Which sort of everybody knows that one of Speedway fans' pet hates is the guest rule and the rider replacement rule. So Sheffield have gone out there and said, look, we're going to be without Jack for a period of time. We don't know how long. Let's get somebody in to make sure that we've got a complete team. And I guess really if his form is really, really good, it gives Simon Stead a bit of a headache as to what happens when Jack Holder's back fit again.
Yeah. Well, interesting one that. Simon Corbett says riders of the tournament: Berger, Rasmus, Jensen.
Yeah, really impressed me. He did. I think we saw him obviously racing in the championship 2 or 3 years ago, and was very impressive then. And probably the least experienced of the riders in that Danish team, but he certainly carried the fight for Denmark and kept them in the early stage of the meeting. And then once the rest of the boys stepped up to the plate, then they were able to get themselves back into contention. But he was certainly a rider that impressed me, and wouldn't be surprised if a few British promoters maybe having a bit of a look at bringing him back over again.
Simon Corbett says, Anthony Douglas says, what sort of league structure will there be next year? I think
I don't think anybody knows, do they?
Yeah,
I think a lot of it depends on how many riders and how many teams there are going to be available.
Which makes me feel really bad, because I've just remembered that a certain Mr. Buck, you might know him, gave me a piece of paper with his opinions on why we may not get one league next year. It was really really well worded. I'll have to dig that out and put it up.
Hang on, I think
we have a
no. That's all right. I think he's just shouting his instructions to his lackeys.
Okay. Again, Robert Greenwood said the Tigers have been branded cheaters by Bellevue fans on the Speedway Friends group, but looks like a similar situation as last year when they got Lambert in.
It does a little bit, doesn't it? I suppose the big thing with
how is it
with Bellevue last year was they bought Lambert in purely for the playoffs, whereas there's another month of the season to go before the playoffs start.
They wouldn't have been bringing him in if Jack Holder had not been injured.
Absolutely, there's no way in a million years Sheffield would have made the change if he'd stayed fit.
No. So, Woofy said in the Speedway Star that he's looking forward to riding in the Premiership. Does he know something we don't? I doubt it.
Possibly knew then that something was being lined up. Maybe not necessarily with Sheffield, but
I mean, I don't see how they can be branded as cheaters. I think they've got him in on a 28 day as well, haven't they? As
something like
injury
that.
Cover.
I think and obviously there's still a lot of bitterness from the Bellevue fans when Wolves bought Woofington in for the playoffs in 2016, and of course in the end we managed to beat Bellevue to the title. So it's fair to say that he's always had a bit of a love-hate relationship with the Ashes fans.
Jeff Daniels said that Team GB lost it through poor management. Bewley had 2 rides up to Heat 5, then 3 rides in the last 6 heats, putting all pressure on Dan to pull it off. Very unfair. Also, they put Dan out against Schmarzlik 3 times. Dan should have been used more evenly. Jack changes a lot.
Yeah. Well, you could. It's easy to be wise after the event, isn't it? And I think possibly if you'd have known in advance, then maybe Bewley's rides could have been sort of paced out a little bit more. But I wouldn't help be waving too much criticism in the direction of Stead and Allen, because they did a terrific job overall.
Yeah, I mean they did. They've got us there to a point where we've gone to World Cups believing we can win it.
Absolutely, and it's a long time since we've been able to say that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot should be said in favour of Ty Woffington there, because he did hold out for changes to be made to the way that happened.
Yes, it's fair to say there was a lot of words exchanged between Woofington and the senior management of the British team, weren't they, in the build up to the changes being made at management level prior to 2016. And I think there's no doubt that the national team now is in a much better place. It's a much more professional setup.
Absolutely.
And it's in a position. Yeah, we've already managed to win a Speedway Nations title. Okay, it was on home soil, and we've gone abroad
I can guarantee you Poland aren't saying
go to and got so close to winning the gold medal.
I can guarantee you Poland aren't saying okay, it was on home soil. You know. No,
absolutely not.
Robert Greenwood, great effort from Team GB. Although gold was in our grasp, we regroup and go again. And Eric Parsons says 001 from a certain rider cost GB in the end.
And that, as I say, just that little slump in the middle of the meeting, was it 3 last places in a row?
Yeah.
That was the deciding factor, I think, in the end, more than anything else.
Fred Graham says, great effort by Team GB, now built for 3 years' time. Tom Brennan should have had at least 1 point when Doyle should have been excluded in Heat 3. I think I've got a lot of sympathy with that. Actually, I felt that he should have been excluded. But I do understand why.
I would agree. That was it was a classic Jason Doyle move, wasn't it? Ruthless. I was very, very surprised when the decision, when he was allowed to back into the run for that one.
Okay, Rassa says, Rich Thomas says Rassa was brilliant when at Swindon.
Yeah, he did. He had a short spell at Swindon, didn't he, in there last season, and impressed greatly.
Robert Greenwood,
no doubt about that.
Robert Greenwood says, you were the one saying cheats after we won the league last season by getting a replacement within the rules. All quiet now you have signed Ty. Do we just sweep your signing under the carpet? I think it's a different situation, like you were saying. But, oh well.
It's a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, team rivalries, eh? You just got to love them. Craig Smith, Bellevue wouldn't have made the change if Frick stayed fit either. So, there you go. Pete Clark says, sorry I'm late, no sheets to lay, and fell asleep. Because obviously there's no match at Birmingham tomorrow because it's been rained off. And if anybody's seen the weather forecast for tomorrow, it's wall-to-wall rain. So, yeah.
And I'm guessing when you get to that age, you need a lot of sleep, don't you, I suppose?
I can't possibly comment on that. Being as I'm older than him. So, okay, I think we've caught up, unless we have some YouTube mentions.
Poland only won 4 races. They were not great, but still won. Changes for them next time around, says Simon.
Oh, and Jeff Daniels says, Sheffield fans have a big grudge against Aces for some reason. Bellevue couldn't care less about Woffington. Like I said before, Sheffield are weaker without Holder. We had Frick injured. Fact can't help when Ryder gets injured, can we? I can see both sides of the story because it still rankles that whole, you know what I'm going to say, the whole Paul situation when they signed the Green.
Greg Hancock.
Not his fault, of course, but it still rankles. We've caught up. Okay. So, moving forward, can we see any riders that possibly in 3 years' time are going to be on the radar for Team GB? It'd be interesting to see what people's predictions are for that. What do you reckon, Matt?
Well, the one man that seems to be really making a hell of a statement is Ashton Boven, isn't he? You know, he was I think he's only about 16 years of age at the moment, so there's a long time to go. With 3 years' time, maybe too quick for him. But he certainly impressed me when he rode at Perry Bar in the British Youth Championship.
Simon Corbett
he's had some few other impressive performances as well in some of the other rounds.
Oh, there's a few people.
There's a few people saying Ashton Bourne.
Yeah.
Is that? Do you think people like Leon Flint might make that breakthrough?
I've got doubts about Leon at the moment. He hasn't had he's been a bit hit and miss this season, even for Berwick in the championship. And he's still sort of frustratingly inconsistent at home for Wolves as well. I think a couple of years ago everybody had some real high hopes of him, but he just maybe seems to have plateaued a little bit.
Dave Twine has mentioned a rider I was thinking of as well, which is Dan Thompson, because all of a sudden he seems to have overcome whatever was problems he was having before, and is going. I mean, he rode so well for Ipswich against Leicester the other night.
Yeah, great win for Ipswich. That was they certainly needed that in there. They were going to muscle their way back into the playoff contention.
Got to give them a lot of confidence because Leicester's not a knockover at their place. And they
haven't been a knockover anywhere, have they? Is it 8 successive wins that had coming into that meeting or something like that? So.
Rich Thomas says Les Collins, he must still be riding somewhere.
Les Collins was still a class rider even when he was in his late 40s. It really was, but...
somebody mentioned Sam Hagen.
Sam Hagen.
A couple of times I've seen him for Birmingham so far, I've certainly been impressed with him. He's definitely got the pace, just lacks a little bit of experience, but that obviously will come in time. So
Ashton Bowen turns 16 in August sometime. Be interesting to see who gets his signature. We need a rider.
So he's not 16 yet?
No, in August, yeah.
Yeah, I would imagine there's going to be a few clubs that are going to be having a little look at him. To be fair, he's certainly making a lot of waves in the youth championship, isn't he?
Yeah, but of course, I mean, we know from our time in the National League, sometimes you get a rider and you think that rider is going to be absolutely brilliant, tip top, and it just doesn't happen for one reason or another. I think you have to be careful about looking at a 16-year-old kid and saying, well, he's going to be a world champion or whatever it is that you're saying.
I think the one that certainly springs to mind is Zach Voigtneck, isn't he? Because he looked to all intents and purposes like he was going to be a huge star when he had that first season with Birmingham in 2015. And it just felt like it was a bit too much too soon, and he sort of, plateaued, didn't he? And of course disappeared from the Speedway.
He had a quite a bad accident as well, didn't he? And I think
that probably didn't help, to be fair. And I think I get the impression as well there were things going on away from the track which didn't help Zach either. But still going strong, of course, on the in the long track, isn't he? In the grass track, I think. But just lost to Speedway now, sadly, by the looks of things.
And then Jack Parkinson Blackburn was another one that we all thought, wow. I mean, he was so talented.
He was, yeah.
And then it just didn't happen. I mean, for all sorts of reasons. But I think sometimes the thing that Dan Thompson has been fighting against a little bit is your body changes. You get taller.
That's certainly the case. Obviously, as you sort of get to older, and obviously things you change there. But that's something that you have to sort of take into account anyway, I think.
Robert Greenwood says, talking about Ty Woffington, the change is good for British Speedway, regardless of who Ty rides for. Gets some crowds in and keeps Speedway UK going. With Clue's futures in the balance, this is one positive we should all be happy with. And I'd pay to see 3 times world champion on any track. I mean, that's a good point. I mean, we were saying earlier that it will put bums on seats, and you look at what's happened with Emil Sayfutdinov, and people just love to see him race. Even if, you see it wherever he goes, him just riding his socks off and getting round of applause from everybody.
There's been a lot of there's been a lot of coverage in the Sheffield press as well, the Sheffield Star and the Northern Star and papers like that of put some big exclusives in on the story of Ty joining Sheffield. So that's good publicity for Speedway, for in particular, of course, for the Premiership as well.
Apparently, Anthony Douglas and Jeff Daniels refer to the same person. William Kearns being looked after by Hancock. That's another possible one for the future.
Yeah, Will Kearns is another one that's certainly impressed as well. I think he rode in that meeting at Perry Bar in the Youth Championship and rode well. He also impressed me when he did some laps in that individual meeting over in the States back in February. So there's definitely some good young riders out there. It's whether they're going to be ready for 3 years' time when we've got the next World Cup.
Yeah. Fred Graham, who I can't see at the moment, excuse me, says he's got a few that he's mentioned. Conor Bailey, Sam Hagen again, Luke Harrison, Ashton Bowen, Anders Rowe, and Dan Thompson. So that quite a few possibilities there, which we've not been able to say before, really. Emil was class at Sheffield and stayed behind an hour after meeting, chatting with fans how it should be. I mean, that's nice to hear as well.
Yeah, he's a nice guy, Emil Seifert enough. And has certainly been a breath of fresh air and has been outstanding in what's been a ultimately disappointing season so far for Ipswich. He's definitely been the standout figure. It'll be interesting to see, of course, whether he's there next year.
Well, he's. I mean, if you listen to the commentary on Monday's night, Calvin was saying he seems to be really, really enjoying himself in Britain, and he said he wouldn't be surprised if he stayed next year. It'll, as you say, interesting to see.
I think so. Yeah, I think that's definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Hello.
Hello. Yes, we can hear you.
We can hear you. We can't see you.
Don't worry. Keep going. Oh, we can't hear you now.
No, we'll get him back in a
Okay.
second. Let's read some of the comments.
Yes, go for it.
So, yes, get the crowds back. We're at the one. Yes, get the crowds back for the crowds for a few weeks. However, one rider is not going to suddenly bring the crowds back, says Eric Parsons.
No, but it's a start, and you get people like Emil Seifertinoff over, and Jason Doyle stopping, and Tarasenko. Yeah. They are starting to come back. Hopefully, not too late.
It's got to be the same as most sports. Is you want to see the stars. You want to see the stars. You want to see the entertainers. The people who are going to bring the crowds back.
Are you back with us, Matt?
Yes, I am.
Okay, good stuff. Pete Clark says it's interesting that people always ask who's going to be riders of the future, but when Birmingham put on a second half, most people go home. I mean, ever was it thus? I mean, I think you have to remember people have got kids, they have to get them home to bed, and they've got work in the morning, etc., etc. So, yeah. Dan Bewley did the same the other week, even though he didn't have a great meeting by his standards. I love it when riders do that, when they stop over afterwards and meet the fans, and particularly when they meet the kids.
I've got to admit,
I think a lot of riders tend to forget that you've got a terrace that you've got terraces with fans who've paid money to come and watch them. So they sort of forget that a little bit. And it's been good to see some of these top boys that have come over to the UK and have certainly embraced that side of it as well. It's always been a frustration with me when you see riders that win a race and then they just go straight back to the pits and don't bother to come round and do a lap of honour. Okay, fair enough. If they know they're going to be in the next race, they've got to get back. I can understand that, but
I think sometimes it's also a case of getting information to the teammates and stuff like that. About
especially when it gets to a tense part of the meeting, doesn't it?
But I do like to see them do the lap of honour. Give that fan gives us as fans the chance to show our appreciation of what they've done. Simon Corbett's just put and this is totally out of left field for me, so I don't know whether there's been any rumours about it, but he's asking, is Hans Andersen going to Brum? Have you heard any rumours?
Well, he's left Peterborough, hasn't he? Obviously, they've made changes, not that it helped them last night.
No.
Is that something that Birmingham would be able to do that? I mean, he's not had a great season, Hans Andersen.
I don't know what his average is and where he'd go and wherever. I mean, if you've got more information about that, the only answer I can give you is I don't know. And would I want him? I don't know. It depends very much on who he would be replacing, doesn't it?
Well, I think Birmingham probably are. Well, they are in the market for another rider now, aren't they?
Obviously, they've said that.
I think it's unlikely that Nick Morris is going to be back this season. Obviously, we don't know. We still don't know the full ins and outs as to what's happened there.
We should also mention that Birmingham did quite well at Scunthorpe the other week.
Yeah, I think they'll take a lot of positives out of that, won't they? They really did keep it tight for the early part of the meeting. Scunthorpe in the end just sort of ran away from with it a little bit and won it fairly comfortably. But I think the Birmingham team and the riders and management will take a huge amount of positives out of that. And I think they would have taken that into tomorrow's meeting, because Plymouth, obviously I know it's off now, but Plymouth would have been a great opportunity for Birmingham to sort of build on that performance and get another much needed win to keep them in the race for the playoffs.
Fred Graham says, last week was interesting to see Polish Extraliga doing a summer camp and riders from all over the world racing. Meetings were on YouTube, and should the UK Speedway do something like this? I mean, the first question is, can UK Speedway do something like this? We haven't got the tracks to be able to do it. I suppose Bellevue.
Certainly Birmingham wouldn't be able to do it, would they, with the restrictions from the planning. Yeah.
Well, yeah, exactly, and I think that's the same. I mean, Wolverhampton couldn't do it. I'm trying to think of other tracks that possibly could.
Bellevue, Scunthorpe possibly, they could do it. Workington, I think, probably could do it as well.
Peterborough, maybe, if they were still going to be with us. Okay, Craig Smith says, let's hope Emil does stay. I've seen him at Bellevue twice this year and travelled to Sheffield just to watch him as well.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't seen him ride yet because I was away when they came to Monmouth Green back in May, but he's at Monmouth in a couple of weeks' time, so I'm really looking forward to that one. By
all accounts, when Emil went to Wolverhampton, he walked out onto the track and turned round to the team manager and said, "Where's the track?"
Probably did. He had ridden there before, of course, when he had that short spell at Coventry in 2011. But from what I was told at that meeting, he certainly took to the track fairly comfortably in the end, earlier in the season.
In answer to the Hans Anderson question, Eric Parsons has said he's retired by all accounts. Love to see him at Birmingham though. I think Birmingham would be a good track for him, actually. Would be his sort of track. Anthony Douglas, don't know what has happened with Kings Lynn and Laguta. It seems odd how many meetings he keeps missing. Thoughts?
Well, there was a rumour going around that his deal involved a clause where he didn't have to ride at certain tracks. Now, I don't know whether that's true, and to be honest, if that is the case, he's disappointed that the BSBL have sanctioned a move where a rider decides which tracks to ride and which not to ride.
What happens if I get to the playoffs and it's at a track that he's been contracted not to ride at? It would be interesting. Dave Quine's get my teeth back in. Sorry about that. Dave Twine says Luke Killen was the kid I was thinking of. Scored 13+1 first match, then injured. Back next week for the Oxford Chargers. I've heard some good things about. I think we've seen him race it down at Brum as well. Luke Killen.
Did he ride in the youth championship?
I think he might have done it. The name rings a bell. It might have done.
Yeah.
Craig Smith says, I think they should try and put youngsters on before the main meeting. Just a thought. People might get in the stadium earlier to watch them. It's not going to work for all sorts of reasons. Could you imagine turning up to watch Bellevue versus Sheffield, for instance, and the youngsters come out, somebody goes into the fence, and that's the end of the match? Could you imagine that? Or if it gets rained off?
I mean, I know Birmingham have started doing that with a couple of things. I mean, there were some of the kids going around before the meetings, but that's purely just demonstration stuff, isn't it? It's not sort of racing in any shape or form.
Not at all. So, there are reasons why it's that way around. It is frustrating, but also people want to watch the match and get home. They've got homes to go to. They've got work in the morning. If you're a midweek track like Birmingham and you've got kids, and I want them to bring the kids. If we can get a match over by 9 o'clock, it's reasonable for them to get the kids home and get to bed. So there's all that sort of stuff going on, really. So, and you can't have it going on too much before because you wouldn't have time to prepare the track. And also, if you had a full match on the track, it's going to damage the track, and it's not going to be right for the. So lots of reasons, really, I suppose, why that's not possible.
Yeah.
I was watching, says Jeff Daniels, who's disappeared. Hello, Jeff. Where are you? Ah, here you go. I was watching a Scunthorpe Birmingham last Friday, and the commentator Ian Brannan said if Brum qualify for playoffs, they will have quality team. Does he know something?
Oh.
I don't know. I do remember thinking at the end of last match when we got soundly beat by Paul, do we really want to make the playoffs and then just get trounced? But who knows? Speedway's a funny old game. Leicester looked poor last night. Batchelor, no replacement for Morris. I would agree with that. But
yeah, certainly I would. Yeah, that certainly weakened Leicester, didn't it? Should mention, of course, as well about Leicester, of course, because they're now up for sale, aren't they? Obviously,
yes.
The Bates family have put the club up for sale. I think it's probably one of the few clubs that in the last few years has actually been pretty successful in terms of turning a profit over.
Mm-hmm.
They've done a pretty good job in sort of turning what was a really struggling club around, haven't they? But they obviously move on. It's going to be interesting to see where that leaves Sheffield, of course, because the Bates also hold the promoting rights at Alderton as well.
Pete, I like this remark. Pete Clark says winter, autumn, spring, summer camp at Buxton on one day.
You could have it as well, couldn't you? I think so.
But you do get all weather on one day in Buxton at that track. Matt, do you think Ryan Douglas will master Wolves track? He's so good on big tracks.
Well, I thought he was, to be fair, but I mean, this season he's not had a great season really for Wolves by the standards that he set the last couple of years. I mean, he was superb last night at Peterborough, but that's a track that he always rides well at. You know, getting him paid for an 18-point maximum. He's been a bit inconsistent at times. He was, certainly last season he was starting to show signs that he'd mastered Monmouth, but he just sort of seems to have faded off a little bit again this year. But I mean, he's a talented rider. There's no two ways about that, and he's very popular with the Wolves crowd and the Wolves promotion. So hopefully he can.
Can anybody tell me if Brum management had the big meeting with the Perry Bar Dogs management? I've heard nothing.
Which means they probably have. I know nothing about that, and I'm a little bit sort of burying my head in the sand because I'm a bit worried about it.
Well, don't be surprised if you don't hear anything about that until after the season's ended.
Yeah.
But,
I have heard some rumours that we may well be going over to Friday nights. I'm not sure that's a particularly bad thing from the point of crowds getting in, but it might be a bad thing from the number of meetings that are run on a Friday.
Well, the Friday programme is a little bit cluttered already, isn't it? So. Unless, of course, Birmingham are planning to move up, which although I'd be shocked if they did.
Is it the dog tracks?
There might not be a second division.
Prevent people from riding on Saturdays and Sundays. Is it mainly because of the way the dogs run?
Well, Speedway, I mean, certainly in the Premiership, don't run at weekends because they'd be going up against Poland.
Right.
Essentially. Okay. And Grand Prix as well.
I'm just thinking, wouldn't it be good if all meetings were,
like
football on the same day or Saturday and Sunday?
It would be absolutely brilliant, but unfortunately, it's not going to happen.
It would also wouldn't be practical because it would have guests and the guests rule, which is a horrible thing in Speedway, but it's also needed because of the nature of the sport. So
I think certainly Chris Howard just struggled, wouldn't he, to be in about 4 places at once. So.
I don't know. I think he's tried a couple of times this year.
So you say regarding Polish leagues, and so then again, it's down to money, then, isn't it? Really?
Well, it's not just that, but the Polish leagues have got all our riders as well.
Yeah, but so the money's there, isn't it, in Poland rather than?
Oh God,
yeah. So, are dirt deflectors still fit for purpose? Says Alan Hewitson.
Fred Graham says no.
And that's just killed that conversation.
What are the purpose? I mean, the first thing is, what are the purpose of dirt deflectors? And that's to stop
dirt getting on people.
Not just getting on people, getting on riders behind them as well, isn't it? That's what it's for. So what would be a better way of doing
I
that.
know. Certainly, I know when they were first introduced in the early 90s, the first few weeks of that season, we had a lot of riders who had a lot of bad crashes during that period, and they had to sort of, in the end, I think, get rid of the dirt deflectors and go back to the drawing board with them. And to be fair, since then, they've not really caused that much of an issue. I guess with a lot of things, I think the riders have just taken time to get used to having them on the bikes at the time.
And Anthony Douglas is a man of my own art, which I asked the same question of season after season. Isn't it time that the top league had a squad system?
Is there enough riders around to have a squad system?
Well, there must be youngsters that would, want to ride.
Yeah, but it's not like football. You can't just have a youngster turn up. In football, you can have a youngster put on a shirt and you can kick the ball. That's as much as you really need to be able to do. He might not be able to kick the ball as hard. He might be able to have all the tricks. He might not have all the knowledge. But it's not going to greatly affect the team too much to have one youngster on the pitch doing that. It's a different game in Speedway.
It's a funny old game.
If you number one's out and you bring in a 16, it's not going to work, is it? You need a rider that's going to score you 10 points. That rider ain't going to do it.
Couldn't that rider ride again?
What do you mean?
Well, you don't have to have like 4 riders, do you?
Well, then
five.
Okay, we'll just sign 2 riders, Emil Seifutinov and Jason
They
Doyle,
can ride all
and
the
that can
rides.
ride all, and we'll thrash everybody.
But would it work like that?
No, it can't work like
works.
that. No, it can't.
Yeah, no.
It just can't. I don't see it.
I've got another stupid Speedway question later.
I think squad systems, they do it in Poland, to be fair, don't they? I think there is something to be said for squad systems. I just don't think that there's enough riders around to do it.
Okay.
Matt, what's your opinion?
I would agree with you, to be fair. I know there's a lot of people who say, no, don't have squad systems, because I like to see a team have 7 riders. And I like to see a team have 7 riders as well. But is it practical now? Unfortunately, there's a shortfall of riders, which is being caused by the doubling up rule. I think that's probably one of the reasons why they seem very, very reluctant to sort of go back to having the one big league. But I think, as we said before, it's getting to a point now where we've got that many clubs that are closing. We might be running out of options other than that.
Yeah. I've got to cut across all this. It's been great. We've just been chatting away, and it's going on. It's nearly 10 to 9, and we haven't done the prediction league yet, which Simon Corbett's just reminded us about. Say hi to Chris Simpson, by the way. He's just turned up. Nice to see you, Chris. Been a while. He says, even chaps, any guesses on this new signing that could make us win the playoffs? P.S. It's not me coming out of retirement.
No, I think it's somebody good.
Yeah. Ooh.
No.
Ouch.
Ooh.
Ouch.
Sorry.
I've got no idea. I presume he's talking about Birmingham there. I have no idea. I know that Dixon has mentioned that he's tried a few riders and nearly got it over the line, and that they would have been good riders to have signed. But
come on then, Matt. Let's get into Simon's. He's going crazy.
Yeah, he needs to know.
He needs to know.
Where are we?
Because he's still on top of the table. So.
No. I'll try.
Not far off, though, admittedly.
No, that's right. So,
did I have a bad week again?
Well, you're right on the bottom there, only because Matt couldn't get the rest of the ride.
To be honest, Matt, if you can take me off the bottom, then we'll just forget about me being there. That would be.
I'll give me ideas.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm nearly 30 points ahead of you.
Right. Okay, so it's up to me to start first this week. So shall we?
Yep. The first one is Oxford against Scunthorpe in the Championship.
Oxford versus Scunthorpe in the Championship. I'm going to say Oxford by 10.
I'm going to say Oxford by 12.
I'll go Oxford by 16.
Okay.
Okay, next up is Poole against Edinburgh, also in the Championship.
That's up to Matt.
Yeah, Matt.
Poole by 20, I'll say.
I'll go Poole by 16.
And I will say Poole by 20 as well.
Okay, next up, this will be an interesting one in the Premiership. Leicester against Sheffield.
I'll go Sheffield by 4.
Really? Interesting.
You say this every week.
Well, yeah, and you're in front of me, so I think it's going to be a tight one, to be sure.
That's what I said for.
But I think Leicester are going to be... I'm going to say Leicester by 4.
They're going to want to bounce back after that result on Monday, aren't they?
Absolutely.
I'll go for Leicester by 2. I think Sheffield will push them. That'll be a good meeting, to be fair.
Yep, I think it will.
A bit of a local derby as well, isn't it? There's not too far much of a distance between Leicester
Well,
and
in
Sheffield.
Speedway terms, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, next one.
Next one, in the Premiership, Kings Lynn against Ipswich.
That's up to you, Mike.
Well, Ippo have got to win. I've got to win that one, haven't I? I'm going to say Ipswich by 8.
I'm going to say Ipswich by 10. I think they need that as well to get pressure on the teams above them.
I'll go Ipswich by 14.
Next one.
Okay. Next up, in the Championship on Friday, Scunthorpe against Berwick.
It's up to you, Matt. I think.
Yep.
Scunthorpe by 12, I'll say.
I'll go Scunthorpe by 4.
Scunthorpe by 10.
Okay. Also in the Championship, Edinburgh against Poole.
I'll go Poole by 6.
I'll say Poole by 12.
I'll say Poole by 10.
Okay.
Next up is Redcar against Glasgow.
Glasgow.
Glasgow. That's up to Mike.
I'm going to say Redcar by 12.
I'm going to say Glasgow by 4 on that one.
Mm-hmm.
I'll go Glasgow by... Glasgow by 8.
Okay, next up in the Championship on Saturday night, Berwick against Poole.
Go on, Matt.
It's up to you, Matt.
Poole by 12.
I'll go Poole by 18.
Poole by 10. From Birmingham's point of view, we need Poole to win that one.
Okay, next up, the semi-final of the NDL Knockout Cup is Leicester against Workington.
That's up to...
Yeah, we should say at this point that what a great first season for Workington.
Yeah, it's been very successful, hasn't it? Been some really good reviews of their track as well.
Yeah.
It's been a big, positive story for Speedway in what's been a difficult year.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I'm going to go for
It's not
Leicester
your go.
by
It's
12.
not, that's not your go. Just stop it. Get out of it.
Leicester by 10.
I'm going to say Leicester by 8. Now you can go, Matt.
No, we don't.
Leicester by 12.
There you go.
Next up, in the NDL on Sunday, Kent against Workington.
Who's that?
That's up to me.
Yeah. Good.
Ooh, I'm going to say a draw. I've got to get one in.
Tries every week, doesn't it?
Kent by 4.
Who?
Kent by 4.
I'll go Kent by 2. Close, very close.
Okay, also in the NDL on Sunday, Mildenhall against Leicester.
That's up to Matt.
That's going to be tasty, isn't it?
Yeah, Mildenhall by 10, I'll say.
I'll go Mildenhall by 16.
Mildenhall by Mildenhall by 6.
Okay, next up in the Premiership on Monday, Wolves against Leicester.
Leicester by 12.
Really? Where? Okay, I'm going to say Wolves by 10.
I'll say Wolves by 4. That'll be a close one, that will. Looking forward to that one. Okay, next up, Peterborough against Ipswich, also in the Premiership on Monday.
That's up to Mike.
Got to say Ipswich by 12.
Ipswich by 6.
Ipswich by 10. In the middle.
Okay. Next up, what a match this is going to be. Bellevue against Sheffield.
Ooh.
Dear.
Come on then, Matt, what are you going to say? With Ty Woffington.
I'm going to go for Sheffield. I'm going to go for Sheffield by 2. Stick my neck out on that one.
I'll go Sheffield by 6.
I'm going to say a draw.
Two chances this week.
Okay, next up, next Tuesday in the Championship, Plymouth against Berwick.
And that's up to me, is it? Yeah, Plymouth by 4.
I want to say a draw because that'd probably be the best result for Birmingham.
I'll say...
Go on, that's my go now. I'll say Plymouth by 2.
Up to Matt.
I think Matt's gone.
Berwick by 2.
Okay, interesting.
He was having a think about it.
Few meetings this week.
Okay, and finally, in the NDL, Oxford against Kent.
I'm going to say Oxford by 10.
I'll say Oxford by 10 as well.
Oxford by 16. And there we go. Is that it?
Simon Corbett
That's it,
says
yep.
Bellevue Sheffield was not on the list.
It's been rearranged since.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
That's why.
So there's a couple of comments that I'd like to go back on while we've got the time. Craig Smee's having a shocker this season, apparently. Nobody got the top 3 in the World Team Cup.
No. Who was the closest?
I don't know.
Probably me.
Few people got 2 of the teams, but nobody got all 3.
Pete Clark says he's tie busy on a Wednesday.
I think that's it. I think we're can I just give you my stupid question of the week? Is there a limit?
Sorry,
on
you've done that twice already.
How many? This must seem really stupid to everybody else. On how many foreign riders you can have in a team? Is there a limit? No.
No.
Okay,
No, there
so
isn't.
the second question would be: are there teams that consist solely of foreign riders?
Don't think there are this year, are there?
Has there ever?
I can't. Well, yes.
Is
I
that,
think there have been in the past,
Yeah.
but there's
Yeah.
none this year, not that I know of.
and is that good or bad for the sport?
Well, let me put it across to you. Has there ever been any football teams with just foreign teams on?
I don't
the
think
pitch?
Premier. No, I don't think entirely.
Well,
no.
I know for a fact that you're wrong. That there has been.
No.
There has been.
I don't.
Now,
No,
yeah,
it's
now
not in the
has
squad.
that been good for football or bad for football? There are certainly teams out there even now that have got majority foreign.
Oh, majority,
players,
yeah. Oh, yeah.
So
Look at the
is
Man
that- is
City's.
that-
That's
Man
majority,
City's,
yeah.
the Man City thing. Yeah, I don't
that
think
good
it's
for the sport or bad
Not
for
in
the
Premier.
sport?
No, I don't think it's good. I don't. No.
So
But, yeah, I was just wondering whether there was a limit on how many.
there
riders
is
you
a
could
limit
have.
because as Craig Smee has just pointed out, the rising star has to be British, doesn't
It does,
he?
yeah.
In the Premiership, so there are places that
Yeah.
have to be British.
Right. Okay.
Um,
There you go. You're only allowed 2
extra league or Polish league riders in one team.
There you go.
Is that right? I don't know. That might just be an
Interesting.
average thing, but
Interesting.
I don't know. Apparently, Exeter in the 70s had all
Entirely-
foreign
Right, okay.
riders.
Well, that hour has just gone.
I know. We suddenly realised we've got to do the prediction league from
That's
nowhere.
incredible. Where the hell did that go to?
I'm really hoping that we hear very soon about this new possible rider for Birmingham. I feel with all the meetings that have been missed, there's a sort of flatness around Birmingham at the moment. If we could have got straight back and played Plymouth the week after the pool meeting and beat them, you could have perhaps started to get some momentum, particularly on the back of the Scunthorpe.
It's been very stop-start as the season, hasn't it, really?
Michael, on from the week before when you mentioned Brum's big loss to Cradley at home in 1983, did you remember the 2 Brum reserves that year both got 9-point paid maximums against Halifax at home? No, I did not. Would you like to name those reserves? Because my memory's not. 1983. I've been to bed since then.
And can we tell Matt not to lose his
your
way
way
home,
home.
says his old man.
What was that? Sorry.
Don't lose your way home, says your dad.
Oh, I've only got to walk about 10 paces. I think I'll just about manage that. It's getting dark and misty now, but I think I'll get there before the sun goes down.
And hopefully not before the rain starts. But
yeah, that's what I'm thinking at the moment. So.
yeah, I will need to get moving quick tonight as well. Well, thank you very much, everyone. That was a really, really interesting show. It
was a good show.
Some great questions. Just like to say well done to Team GB once again. Enjoy your Speedway wherever. And it was, Andrusek and Jorgensen were the two reserves that got that maximum. Enjoy your Speedway this year, sometime today, tomorrow, and we'll see you next week. Take care, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Welcome to the Speedway.